Hey, Brew fans. Thanks for tuning in to the Brew Review podcast number 14, coming at you this Mother's Day Eve, May 14th, 2018, with your first place Milwaukee Brewers. Joining us today, Scott Bartell. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how we doing, everybody?
Vince Stravato. Hey, Vince.
Hey, guys. How are you?
And Chad Collins. Are you there, Chad? I know.
Yeah, guys. Unfortunately, Chad is in Chicago right now. He is with Barfly Mike of our sponsor, the Drunk Uncles fame. He was in Chicago, apparently delivering Mother's Day baskets to an old folks home in Chicago. So I don't know what that means, but apparently his phone doesn't work down across state lines, so he can't call in.
Wow, what a humanitarian! Remember when we sang Christmas carols? That was great. To those old
yeah, our intern Shaniqua can put that up on our podcast here.
Ooh,
yeah, Dad gave out free chocolate Santas too. I remember that.
Yep. He pulled them out of his coat pocket. Those were awesome.
Yeah, but some of the nurses were actually kind of mad about that because some of those people were diabetic. But it's Christmas.
I'm sure that Chad's pockets are FDA approved. I mean, obviously they were pretty cleanly. So,
all right. Well, without much further ado about that, let's recap the Brewers' week for starters. This past week they had a 2-game set at home at Miller Park against the Cleveland Indians, which they split, and then a 4-game set in Colorado. So Brewers took 3 of 4. Including epic comeback win on this past Friday night when they 11-10. The Brewers came back from behind. I think they're down 9-3 at one point, and they pulled that one out. That was a great one. And also, of course, on just today on Mother's Day, Freddy Peralta made his major league debut, and what a debut it was! He went 5 2/3, gave up just the 1 hit, and that wasn't until the 6th inning. And walked 2 and struck out 13 batters. So I'm sure we'll have some comments about that. But it's quite a week for the Brewers, and with the goings on today, I believe the Cubs, the Pirates, and the Cardinals all lost today, which leaves the Milwaukee Brewers in first place, which in the NL Central, which I think they were about a year ago. Probably with a little bit more comfortable lead, but I believe we have a half-game lead right now over our opponents, and so in spite of all the adversity and injuries and stuff that we've been going through, which we'll hit on, we're weathering through this, and the Brewers somehow keep winning. So I don't know what to start off with their thoughts of this week's games and observations.
Yeah, I mean, what an exciting week, Craig. The team is playing great. We're clicking. It seems like we play really well on the road this year. We've got a team that is able to, like you said, battle through a lot of injuries. And that's the really impressive thing. If this team comes back at full strength, and maybe even adds a piece or two at the deadline to shore up a few weaknesses, it can be a really exciting second half. I know that we're still in May and it's still early on in the season, but we've got the potential to really put together a pretty exciting ball club stretch run this year.
Yeah, what an absolute crazy weekend. Definitely the comeback episode, I will say I was definitely watching it the whole time. So the Brew Review tweeted out on that right when it happened.
Yep.
Very exciting win. And to be able to take 3 of 4 without Chase Anderson, I think that's really huge. I mean, we don't even have our ace. 3 of our 5 pitchers are on the DL, our starting pitchers. So, and to be able to get it done, phenomenal. Great job.
And here's one other quick stat, guys. The Brewers are now 14-8 on the road this year. We do have a winning record by 1 game at home, but we're 14-8 on the road, which is really impressive to me.
Wow. Hashtag Road Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, the Brewer fans like ourselves have gone through years and years, or possibly decades, actually, it seems, of West Coast road trips that just did not necessarily usually go in the Brewers' favor. And even though this is just the start of one here, as we go on to Arizona next, I believe. This upcoming week we have a 3-game set against Arizona, and then also finishing up a road trip back in the Midwest and Minnesota. next weekend. But really, I mean, 3 of 4 in Colorado against a pretty solid Rockies team, I think was pretty impressive, in my opinion, especially with our team. Not necessarily not only not at full strength, but really, it almost seems like we haven't had the ability to fire on all cylinders yet this year, but somehow, like Vince says, we have an amazing road record, and we're somehow the depth, I guess, which you have to give Stern some credit for, that has been built on our 40-man roster in particular, but even in the upper levels of minor leagues, especially coming into this year, is really paying off so far. And so, building that quality depth of talent is starting to shine through now. And we'll see where we can go with that. And we haven't even dipped into really talented players, like Corbin Burns yet. So, what a week. Obviously, we started off with this against Corey Kubler, and we beat the Indians on the first game against them. And then, like you guys said, just seeing it pitch a nice game, Colorado. And then the Brewers came back from kind of a poor start by Brandon Woodruff, who was kind of thrown out there. And then, obviously, today, Freddy Peralta had to bring him up to minor leagues because of a stomach illness or something from Chase Anderson, and did not know what you were going to expect against for Freddy Peralta. But, wow, what a performance.
Pitching in Colorado, guys. I mean, not only was it against a great team with the Rockies and a contending team, a playoff team last year, but pitching in Colorado, his first major league start, it was just an incredibly dominating performance. The number, what did he get? 13 or 14 strikeouts today?
13
strikeouts. Yeah,
13 strikeouts. I mean, that's the sign of a pitcher who's obviously just dominating the opposition. So he seemed like he moved his pitches really well today, and what a confidence building performance for a guy who's making his big league debut.
Well, yeah, and wow, for the Brewers, I don't know. It was just coincidence that they're pitching not too far from their AAA affiliate, Colorado Springs, so they just dialed them up and had a couple guys jump in their car and come on over and start some games this weekend. Brandon Woodruff and Freddy Peralta both came up from Colorado Springs over to Colorado and helped us out a little bit. And I'm pretty sure Tim Dillard might have got the call too. Come on up.
I was hoping.
He's still on his moped heading up there to Denver, but anyway, the Brewers might be out of town by the time he makes it. But anyways, maybe next time.
Yeah, he can probably fill us in when we interview him next. But hey, guys, one other quick stat, and it's a bit misleading, but I do think it's interesting. Not every team has played an equal number of games, but there's only 3 teams in Major League Baseball that have more wins than the Milwaukee Brewers right now. 2 play in the American League East with the Red Sox and the Yankees sitting at 28. The defending world champion Houston Astros are at 26, and your Milwaukee Brewers are at 24 wins. It's again, an uneven look because the team's not playing equal amounts of games yet, but I do think that's a pretty great statistic to be looking at so far this year.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. Absolutely. So, backtracking a little bit to the last time we did our podcast, we had talked about a couple players, and both Vince and Scott brought to my attention that a lot of the players I mentioned on our podcast go down with potentially major injuries, and I apologize for that. But coincidence.
Stephen Vogt,
I know last time
Mauricio
Dobon, Nick Franklin.
Yeah, last time.
Miley.
Yeah, minor leagues, major leagues. Greg, you've got the curse of the injury touch.
Yeah, and so I had to edit out some of the things because they weren't up to date, including we done a prospect profile on Mauricio Dobon, who had a 23-game hitting streak up until last week, Sunday, and it didn't necessarily get snapped, but he still with the streak intact had to find out that he has a torn ACL and is going to miss the entire rest of the season. It's unfortunate because I really feel like he could have been an option for the Brewers, to bring up and help at second base, or even possibly struggling our shorts. If Arcia continued to struggle short anywhere middle infield, we could have used his depth. And Unfortunately, he's not going to be available to us now this season. And actually, I'm a former ACL surgery recipient myself, so my heart goes out to him. It's a long process of rehabilitation. He will come back strong, I'm sure. But again, it's just a big loss for him personally. And then even more devastating news almost is that Stephen Vogt, who was on the verge of probably within days of rejoining the Brewers and possibly jettisoning someone like Jet Bandy, no pun intended, that he, instead found out that he has a bunch of bad things going on with his right shoulder, and he is definitely going to be out for the year and possibly has a career-threatening injury. And that's really too bad because he is universally loved by his teammates from all the teams he's played on, and is just overall a great guy. I really thought that the Brewers could use his left-handed bat as a part-time catcher for the rest of the season. So that those two injuries, I think, are bigger blows than what casual Brewer fans might realize, in my opinion. But and that's unfortunate, and I want to keep it positive with this episode. Like I said, the Brewers are in first place. I might keep mentioning that very many times. But what are your takes, I guess, on those two injuries?
Yeah, Craig, you're right about the Vogt injury. It's really unfortunate. I mean, the guy is, he, from all accounts, have been working very hard to come back. You still see him traveling with the team, and then he goes on his rehabilitation assignment with the expectation he'd be back up, within a week at most, at the time he got injured. So it is too bad. It's very frustrating. I think that it kind of reorients Stearns' plan now for the rest of the season here. We're going to have to, I think, get another catcher at some point that can give some relief to the major league club. Manny Pena cannot catch every single game, and Jet Bandy simply isn't, necessarily regarded as being a top quality catcher. So I think that we're going to have to start looking for a catcher, unfortunately. We do have a guy like Christian Betancourt still in the minor leagues, but I don't know what we're going to do at that position. Betancourt's hitting 324 right now in AAA, so that's good. So maybe we'll just go with an internal option like that. But certainly losing a guy of Stephen Vogt's caliber who's got that veteran presence and an ability to call a game and hit well from the left side, it is a loss for sure.
Yeah, and I guess we shouldn't forget a little bit about Jacob Nottingham. Obviously, he had a quick cup of coffee and, didn't set the world on fire, I guess, while he was up here. He wasn't bad, but he just didn't really do anything. I don't think he got a hit. He walked a little bit. But
I think Nottingham got hurt yesterday too, though, Scott.
Awesome. Well,
not a serious injury, but I think a 10 or 15-day
if he didn't, he probably would now that Scott mentioned him, actually. So
yeah. Well, the problem
either
is,
way,
if you give up on Bandy, like he could very well just be gone. He's out of options, and I agree. I think it's probably time. Like I've seen enough to know that I don't think the bat's going to come around. So I'm ready to see a change there. But yeah, you're going to lose him, but you're not. You don't want to do that. You want to have depth. We obviously don't have the catching depth that we want anyway. So losing one more part is not a good thing. But you got to do something.
When we look at the positions that we need to upgrade, I think we talked about on our last episode. I'm personally fine with Arcia, even if he's not hitting like we hoped that he would, just because of the defense and what he brings to the table when he does get on base he's got some speed and he plays an outstanding defense. So I can handle a guy not hitting as well if he's bringing that type of defense to the table. But we really, I think, need to step up our search for a second baseman as well. Clearly something is going on with VR, and it's more than just he's been in a slump. He's not playing on games that you think he'd be playing. We sent down Eric Sogard last week, so he's not the answer. We've got, Tyler Saladino coming up. He came up this week, and he played fine, but I don't think he's a long-term answer. So if there's a team, if you're starting to look at trades at the deadline, besides the, overall starting pitcher talk, I think that a second base catcher swap might be really what this team needs. And I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, or maybe we're still a little far from the deadline. I know that there's been some banter already about looking at Oakland. They're 19-21 on the year, so they're not completely out of it in the American League West, but they're not necessarily a playoff contender at this point either, with Jed Lowry and Jonathan Lucroy is possibly being available via trade, both free agents at the end of the year. I don't know if you guys have identified anybody else around the league, but it seems to me like those two positions are the ones that we need to upgrade. So if there's a trade that we can make that could kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, that might not be a bad place to start looking.
I was going to say, yeah, I think that Jed Lowry is the perfect Stearns candidate still. I think I've said that before. He plays so many different positions that he would instantly kind of be more closer to, like, I guess, what Hernan Perez does for us now. But I'm not so sure. I don't think that that the Brewers want Lucroy back, and I'm not sure. I mean, obviously he's a shell of what he once was, but if we were going to get it back, I think we would have done it in the offseason, and we didn't make a play at all. And so, at least from what I heard. So, yeah, I don't think that Lucroy is gonna be coming back anytime soon.
And I'm not necessarily hung up on it being Lucroy. I guess I'm looking more at guys that might be available and guys that are coming from teams that also may have a second baseman available. And that's why I mentioned Oakland. One other thing, too, though, Scott, before Lucroy signed with Oakland, we didn't know the extent of Stephen Vogt's injury. He wasn't injured yet. So
that's a good point.
Perhaps now that situation may have changed a little bit. And Lucroy certainly isn't what he used to be. The last couple of years he's gone downhill. That being said, he is hitting 287 this year, and he's got a 357 OBP. So he is a guy that can bring that to the table. I know his pitch framing metrics have been analyzed in really bizarre fashions the last couple of years. He's either really at the top of the league or at the bottom, and it's strange to me, but that he can at least has that track record of being able to do that. So I don't know. You might be an interesting mix, and again, just because Oakland may be selling and maybe having a second baseman available too, who I could see the Brewers definitely having interest in a Jed Lowry type.
Yeah, I think Vince is right that I think we could target a catcher, mostly because of the Vogt injury. I think the Brewers really did. I think they were very satisfied coming into the season. They probably kicked the tires on certain guys like Lucroy, but overall, I think they were just happy with Pena and Vogt as a right-handed, left-handed tandem, so to speak. More so with Pena, getting the majority of starts, which he's still doing. But I think they were just happy with that. Not only that, but even the depth that then they have at AAA, with Bethencourt and Nottingham and even Bandy there. I mean, that again, Stearns built some pretty good depth. There really wasn't any room for a guy like Lucroy without having to jettison someone else. And so I think that was why they just kind of went with what they have. But now with the Vogt injury, I don't know, maybe they'll just – it all depends, I think, where we're at in July. We're sitting here mid-May in first place, but like I said, I think the next 2 months will be telling for sure. Where we're sitting at on July 13th will make a big difference whether or not we make that type of move. But that would be a good identified team that basically have guys on their last year, Lucroy's on a 1-year deal, and Lucroy, I believe, Lowry's on the last year of his deal. So a team like the A's could definitely be looking to trade those guys off, but they're going to want something valuable in return. So both of them being rentals, I would definitely need the Brewers to be in position to make a run at the playoffs at that point to even consider it. So I'm sure it'll come up again, but for now, I think they're just going to have to kind of make do with what they have at both those positions, unfortunately, unless there's like some waiver wire ads or something like that. But other than that, I don't think we're going to be doing any type of trades until 2 months from now. So we shall see.
Yeah, I guess on the trade market, you'd probably – I guess the first name everyone will throw out will be that JT Realmuto from the Marlins. I've been rumored for the last 4 months to go somewhere. He's obviously not happy playing for the Marlins, which describes all Marlins. But, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone at the deadline.
And that's another potential trade matchup, too. I would not mind Starlin Castro being our second baseman for the rest of this year either. I mean, I think you'd have to – you could probably not give up quite as much in a package with Miami if you're going to take on Castro's salary. The Marlins obviously been selling off pieces for the last 5 months ever since Jeter and his ownership group took over on the team, which is one of the ways that we got Christian Yelich. But I can definitely see us matching up with the Marlins for a trade. But, I do think that the cost for Realmuto would be through the roof. I mean,
just because he's cost controlled for quite a while still. So, I don't think the Brewers are going to meet that price tag, unfortunately, unless they really unless something happens to Pena and then they're really looking for like a primary catcher going forward or something like that. But, I think that that's a name to throw out there, but I think the price tag will end up being too high on him. We'll see. So a couple other injuries to get to before we so we can fit into this episode. Basically, let's see. In the last week, besides those injuries we already talked about, we also had Wade Miley go down. We had he's on the DL. Zach Davies went on the DL also. I don't think he's expected to be out for too long. Miley, by the way, I think is out 6 to 8 weeks. So that's depending on what you think of Miley, unfortunate or fortunate. But Zach Davies on the DL, and now Chase Anderson came up, like we already mentioned, like some kind of stomach bug or something. Obviously, that's not going to probably put him out for very long, but still having to dip into our depth here and seeing what some of these guys can do, like Freddy Peralta. Pretty exciting. I guess if you guys want to hold off commentary on Peralta, we'll on our Thursday episode coming up, maybe we'll do a prospect profile on him and talk about him in more depth, including his debut. But overall, what do you feel about how these injuries are going to affect the Brewers moving forward as we conclude this long road trip and then open up our 10-game homestand just over a week? How do you think that do you think these guys are going to, obviously from our original starting rotation, we've got, as far as our best pitchers go, we now have Jimmy Nelson on DL, Chase Anderson on DL, Zach Davies on the DL, Wade Miley on the DL. I mean, we could put together a pretty decent staff of guys we have on the DL right now.
I'll tell you,
I don't think
entire projected rotation in spring training. I mean, well, I guess we knew Jimmy Nelson to be hurt for the first couple months of the year, but that's incredible.
And even though the stomach bug is a little bit of a miss, I don't think we were pulling a Los Angeles Dodgers and just gaming the 10-day DL either. So I don't know. What are your overall thoughts on whether or not we're going to be weathering through this specific starting pitcher DL issue we got going on?
The best part about this is our starting rotation was not our strength, but our bullpen is anyway. So I guess if you're in theory, if you're going to have these guys only going, 2 times through the order, and once they get to that third time and they're in trouble, then we can go to our bullpen. And our bullpen is so good that we're going to ask a lot of them in the next week or two, especially. And but you look at all these injuries, and a lot of these guys are fringe players. It's not like we're losing like any of our stars or anything like that. Like when Kane and Yelich were hurt at the beginning of the year, it was like, oh man, this is rough. But I think we can get through this.
All right, way to stay positive, Scott.
Yeah, I worry. My concern, you can find somebody to get through 4 or 5 innings of a game. I think we're just going to see more of, Brandon Woodruff and maybe Brent Suter and whoever else we can toss out there over the next, 10 days until we get Davies and Anderson back. But I do worry that it's going to tax the bullpen a little bit because you're going to have guys making shorter starts. Even Peralta today, who was brilliant, in his actual pitching performance, we still had to cover, past the 6th inning for him, which I guess is what we could positively expect. And I'm worried that we're going to have starters that are, going to go 4 innings this week, and I think that our bullpen needs to be prepared for that. So hopefully they're up for the challenge. It's just a team effort that guys are going to have to step up and cover, but I do worry about the effect on the bullpen.
Yeah, and luckily,
absolutely.
A big part of our bullpen, there's a lot of guys out there that can go multiple innings. I mean, Hader's done it, Knabel's done it, Jeffers has done it. So, I mean, even Jennings and Albers could do it. So, that's a big part of it. And we're doing a better job, I think, this year of utilizing the 10-day DL. I mean, a couple of these guys may not have even hit the DL. I don't know if Chase Anderson goes on the DL if we don't have a 10-day DL, but I don't think we would have thrown him on the 15-day. But yeah, I think that's part of it too. But yeah, I think we'll be able to get by.
We did bring up, we should make a note, Jacob Barnes also got sent back to AAA this week, and we've made several moves out there. I know Alec Asher was up for 1 game, and now Jorge Lopez is back with the big league club. So you've got another lefty who could also go multiple innings if needed, or in a mop-up situation as well.
It almost did seem like that during that 4-game Colorado series, or in Colorado, where we kind of used the local farm team to shuttle some guys in. I don't know if they wanted to save on travel expenses or something, but anyways, it just happened to be timing out right, I guess. So, Unfortunately, we kind of blew through our time for this episode for the most part. But before we wrap up, guys, this week, 3 games in Arizona against a pretty solid Diamondback team that's cooling off a little bit. But then also the Minnesota Twins, who are still hovering toward first place in the AL Central, even though they're nearly 500-ish. But what is your predictions for this week that we finish up the road trip with 6 more road games?
Wait. First, who won last week's predictions again?
Definitely wasn't me. In fact, I forgot that the Rockies with the 4 games instead of
Thursday,
3 games set. So
yeah.
But anyway, it wasn't me. I only picked us to win 1 game that week. So.
Jeez, Craig, pessimistic, man. I don't know. The Diamondbacks are cooling off. They've lost 4 in a row. That being said, obviously they're still a very tough team. I'm going to be wildly optimistic and say we get 2 of 3 though from Arizona, just because we're playing well. That may be wildly optimistic, but we'll say 2 of 3 from Arizona, and I'm going to go 2 for 3 against Minnesota too. Why not? Let's say 4 wins.
All right, 4-2, Scott.
I'm going to say 3 wins. I think we'll lose 2 of 3 to the Diamondbacks, and I think we'll hopefully win 2 of 3 from the Twins.
All right. I think we'll go 3-3 for the week, which I think will still, basically make it a successful 10-game road trip since we took 3 or 4 in Colorado. So I'll be happy with that, and then come back home for a nice 10-game set, and I'm excited to see the Brewers at home here in Milwaukee and with the weather warming up. So we look forward to that. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We got another episode coming at you this Thursday. So make sure to tune in. We'll have a prospect profile on Freddy Peralta, take some fan emails, and then Scott's going to be the provider of our Rapid 9, stepping up to the plate. So tune in to that podcast. Thanks again for all your input, guys. And
Craig, really quick, Craig, did Tom Carter mention who's going to be starting for us this week in lieu of any of our injured starters? Did he mention any other potential moves?
Guys, is that our anonymous source?
TC.
I know. Yeah, our anonymous source, Tom Carter. Did he mention anybody?
I left TC a voicemail, and he didn't return it. And maybe because you guys mentioned his name on here, he said he didn't want to have you say his name because someone could look him up.
Well, to use the inside information if we can't use Tom Carter's name on the air. I mean,
he said you could just use the information. Anyway, we'll get this worked out eventually. Sorry, Tom. All right, well, until next week, guys, that wraps it up. So
stay classy, Denver. Go Brewers.
Go Brewers.